My name is Ava Bonnie, and this is the story of how I learned, sometimes, your biggest enemy doesn't come from outside the family. It is your family. For 10 years, I poured everything I had into our small, family-run tech company. I gave it my time, my talent, and every ounce of heart I could spare. I built it from a barely surviving startup into a $50 million enterprise. But success has a way of revealing things, like who's truly with you, and who's just waiting to take what you built the moment you let your guard down. My father's 60th birthday was supposed to be a celebration. A tribute to everything we'd built together. The kind of night where stories are told, laughter echoes off the chandeliers, and old photos are passed around with misty smiles. That's what I thought I was walking into. But what I got instead was a stage. And I was the unwitting fool set up for public execution. The party was Rosalind's idea, of course. She'd rented out the grand ballroom at the most expensive hotel in the city. It wasn't really a birthday party, it was a press opportunity disguised in satin linens and crystal centerpieces. That's always been her style. Everything she does has a headline stitched into it. I showed up early, wearing a simple black dress and carrying years of loyalty like armor. The moment Rosalind saw me, she looked me up and down and said, "Couldn't you have made more of an effort?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The room filled quickly. Business executives. Investors. Family friends. Rosalind floated around the room like she owned it, shaking hands, flashing her award-winning smile, performing success like it was a talent show. I stayed behind the scenes, as usual, making sure everything ran smoothly. Then came the sound that cut through the chatter like glass, Rosalind tapping her champagne flute. I expected a toast to Dad. Maybe a few stories from our childhood. Instead, her voice rose with rehearsed power, as we celebrate Dad's legacy. It's time to announce the future of Bonnie Tech. I felt it before she said it. A cold tightening in my chest. Effective immediately, I will be taking over as sole CEO. It's time for certain elements that no longer serve our growth to step aside. I sat there, frozen. She wasn't just sidelining me, she was erasing me. In front of our entire professional network. She called me outdated. Adequate. A liability. She looked me in the eye and said I wasn't cut out for modern business. And my father? He nodded. Smiling. As if she'd just handed him a golden crown. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I stood, walked over to his table, placed a small wrapped box in front of him, and said, "Happy birthday, Dad." Then I turned and walked out, heels clicking against marble like a metronome. She thought she'd won. But she forgot who built the empire she just tried to steal. By sunrise, the emails had already been sent. Dozens of them. One to every client, every investor, every senior employee. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I simply executed. For 10 years, I built Bonnie Tech with my bare hands, brick by digital brick. And now, with the same focus that once scaled this company from a strip mall repair shop to a $50 million enterprise, I was about to take it back. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., the glass doors opened and in walked Rosalind, strutting in heels, Dad trailing behind her like a loyal campaign manager. They weren't expecting me, and it showed. Her voice snapped like a whip, full of fake surprise and contempt. "Ava, what are you doing here?" I didn't flinch. Just wrapping up a few loose ends. They started talking over me immediately, pushing their false narrative. Rosalind, about leadership. Dad, about board approvals. But I had no intention of debating. I tapped my tablet. The conference room screen came alive with documents, legal, irrefutable, damning. "Let's talk about ownership," I said evenly. "I own 51% of Bonnie Tech. You both signed off on it 3 years ago, remember, Dad? When we needed capital and you were too busy attending Rosalind's award gala to read the paperwork?" His face drained of color. Rosalind's hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. I wasn't done. And the software, our core platform, the one that generates over 80% of our revenue? It's not even owned by Bonnie Tech. It's licensed through my separate entity, Innovate Solutions LLC. That license expired this morning. Renewal was due last week. But I chose not to submit it. Panic began to bloom behind their eyes, and while you were celebrating my public execution last night, I was transferring developers. Informing clients. Our biggest contracts? Triggered their loyalty clauses the moment my departure was made public. Silence. Just the sound of Rosalind's phone buzzing, another client terminating. Another developer gone. I let the moment hang, then offered them two options: resign now and retain silent shares, or watch the company implode by noon. By the time the lawyers arrived, Bonnie Tech was mine. Not because I fought dirty, but because I planned better. Because I never forgot who actually built it. And now, I would rebuild it again, on my terms. 10 years ago, Bonnie Tech wasn't an empire. It was a dusty little shop tucked between a nail salon and a pawn store in a half-forgotten strip mall. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the shelves sagged under obsolete hardware, and the phones rang only when someone needed a virus removed. My dad ran the place with stubborn pride, clinging to a vision that had long since outlived its market. While Rosalind jetted off to some Ivy League business school, chasing degrees and accolades, I stayed behind. Not because I had to, because I saw something here that no one else did. I saw potential. I'd go to my computer science classes during the day, and by night I was at the shop, fixing broken motherboards and sorting invoices by hand. It wasn't glamorous. But it was real. I remember sitting at the back desk one winter night, fingers numb, writing the first lines of code for what would become our inventory software. It was simple, intuitive, affordable. Not revolutionary, but useful. The kind of tool small businesses like ours actually needed. I showed it to Dad one morning. He barely looked up. "We're not a software company," he grumbled. Still, I put it online. Reached out to a few local businesses. A week later, we had our first license sale. Then 10 more. Then 50. That's when Dad's tune started to shift. "Maybe you're onto something here, kiddo," he said, pride flickering in his voice like a lighter that wouldn't quite catch. For a moment, I thought I had earned it. His respect. His trust. But that moment passed like all the others. As Rosalind collected framed diplomas and top-tier internships, I built infrastructure. Created systems. Wrote lines of code that would eventually process millions in transactions. I wasn't chasing prestige, I was laying foundations. While she mastered presentations, I mastered problem-solving. While she learned how to pitch, I learned how to deliver. And every time the business grew a little more, I poured more of myself into it. I wasn't building a resume. I was building a company. But back then, no one clapped. No one noticed. I didn't need applause. I just needed time. Because some of us don't talk about success, we build it. In the years that followed, Bonnie Tech grew faster than anyone expected, and every inch of that growth had my fingerprints on it. What started as a side hustle selling basic inventory software evolved into full-scale development. I built out new platforms, brought on developers, streamlined operations, and shifted us from a dusty repair shop into a national tech firm with real traction. By the 5th year, we were breaking $1 million in annual revenue. I should have felt unstoppable. But success has a strange way of drawing out the people who once told you your ideas weren't big enough. That's when Rosalind came back. She quit her sleek job at a Manhattan consulting firm and moved back home like she was doing us a favor. At the family dinner table, in between bites of her overpriced salad, she declared, "I think it's time I took my rightful place in the company." My fork paused midair. With my business background, we can finally take Bonnie Tech to the next level. Dad lit up like she'd just returned from battle wearing a crown. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We could use your professional touch around here." He said it without a trace of irony, as if the company hadn't already outgrown our garage 3 years ago. And just like that, Rosalind was named co-CEO. No experience. No product knowledge. No track record. Just a pedigree and a smile that worked well on camera. It's good for the company's image, Dad insisted. People trust credentials. So while I kept coding, hiring, and running ops, Rosalind became the face. She gave interviews about being a woman in tech. Accepted awards for innovation she didn't invent. Posted inspirational quotes online like they were strategies. The press called us the Bonnie sisters, a dynamic duo. But only one of us was doing the work. Behind the scenes, I kept my head down. I scaled the team. Built platforms that landed Fortune 500 clients. But with each passing quarter, Rosalind's shadow stretched further across the company I had built. People started calling her the visionary. Me? I became the technical lead. Success without recognition is like clapping with one hand. It makes no sound. But I didn't speak up, not yet. Because I knew one thing Rosalind didn't. Power isn't about the spotlight. It's about what you own when the lights go out. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about betrayal when it comes from family, it's slow, deliberate, dressed up as strategy and professional direction. At first, it was small. A board call rescheduled without notice. A meeting I was too busy to attend, according to Rosalind. Emails forwarded without my name. Presentations given with my data, my work, my vision, but her face on the slide. I started noticing a pattern. The further we climbed, the further I was pushed to the edge. She called it delegation. I knew it for what it was, erasure. Rosalind had taken control of the narrative, and no one blinked. After all, she had the right resume, the polish, the investor-friendly demeanor. Meanwhile, I was the woman in the hoodie who made things work. It didn't matter that I had built the infrastructure holding the company together. It didn't matter that I was still the one solving crises at 2 a.m., writing code that saved entire accounts. The spotlight wasn't mine to stand in. Not anymore. Rosalind made sure of that. I tried confronting her once. Brought up the disappearing invites, the decisions made without me, the way my role had become ceremonial at best. She smiled, tight, insincere, and said, "Ava, you're too valuable to be wasting your time on meetings. We need you focused on the tech." It was a tidy little lie. One that sounded like praise but felt like a collar tightening around my neck. I turned to Dad for backup, for clarity, for something. But he just waved it off. Let Rosalind handle the vision. You do the hard stuff. You've always been good at that. And just like that, the message was clear: stay in the background. Be useful, but quiet. It didn't matter that I had built this company from a scrap heap of salvaged parts and second-hand software. In their eyes, I was never going to be enough, not in the boardroom, not at the microphone, not in the story they wanted to tell. So I stayed silent. I watched. I waited. And when Rosalind rented that ballroom and stood under those glittering lights, ready to crown herself the rightful queen of Bonnie Tech, she had no idea the mistake she was making. She thought I was invisible. But I was just loading the next move. The office felt different after they were gone. Quieter. Not just in sound, but in pressure. No more meetings where I was talked over. No more whispered strategy sessions I wasn't invited to. No more pretending to smile through clenched teeth while Rosalind claimed credit for ideas she couldn't explain. It was just me now. My company. My decisions. My name finally tethered to the work I'd been doing in silence for a decade. And yet, as I sat in the CEO chair, finally mine, truly mine, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Victory, when it comes at the cost of bloodlines, doesn't taste like champagne. It tastes like ash. Rosalind and Dad were officially out of the picture. Legally. They still held shares, but that's all they held: no voting power, no operational control, no seat at my table. Rosalind stormed out the day the papers were signed, red-faced and broken in a way I hadn't seen since we were children. Dad didn't say much. He just sat back in the leather chair that used to be his, staring at the floor like he was trying to undo time. And Mom, she didn't come. I think part of her had seen this fracture coming for years and couldn't bear to watch it finally break open. The company didn't crumble without them. It surged. Within months, we onboarded new clients, launched a fresh product line, and stabilized our core team, many of whom had stayed because of me, not the Bonnie name. For the first time in years, people looked to me for answers. My name went on the contracts, the pitch decks, the press releases. I wasn't just the silent architect anymore. I was the architect and the face. And yet, some nights I sat at my desk, staring at the corner where Rosalind used to leave her coffee, remembering a time when we were just two sisters trying to figure it out. That version of us was gone. Maybe it never really existed, the empire was intact, and it was finally mine. But the foundation beneath the family had cracked beyond repair. And as much as I rebuilt the company brick by brick, there was nothing left to salvage in the ruins of the trust we had destroyed. Some things, I was learning, are more permanent than betrayal. Silence, for one. Distance, for another. A year later, Bonnie Tech didn't just survive, it soared. Under my sole leadership, we tripled in value. Our product line expanded into new markets, and we secured partnerships that once seemed out of reach when I was working in the shadows. The name Ava Bonnie now appeared in headlines, not as a footnote to someone else's success, but as the reason behind it. Investors who once praised Rosalind's polish began calling me the visionary. I didn't need to correct them. I didn't need to gloat. I just kept building, kept leading, kept proving what I'd always known. Real power doesn't beg for recognition, it earns it. Over time, in results and resilience, Rosalind faded into a quieter life. She took a job at a mid-level startup in Silicon Valley, far from the boardrooms she once ruled with rehearsed confidence. Word was she'd toned down her flair, learned to listen more than speak. I hoped that was true. I didn't hate her anymore, I was just done carrying the weight of her entitlement. Dad quietly retired a few months after the takeover. I heard he spends most mornings on long walks, and for once, he's not trying to manage anything but his regrets. We see each other on holidays, exchange polite conversation, keep the distance that now defines our version of peace. Then came the invitation. It arrived in a crisp white envelope with the gold-embossed seal of Rosalind's former business school. A request for me, Ava Bonnie, to deliver the keynote speech at their next graduation ceremony. Topic: Hidden Strengths, the Power of Underestimated Leaders. I let the irony sink in. The same halls that once molded Rosalind into someone who thought I was replaceable now wanted me to teach their future stars what strength really looked like. I accepted without hesitation. Not to brag. Not for revenge. But because I had something to say, something that mattered. As I stood on that stage months later, looking out at a sea of eager faces, I didn't think of Rosalind or Dad or the party where it all fell apart. I thought of the girl in the back of a repair shop, writing code under flickering lights, building something no one believed in but her. That's the version of me who built an empire. That's the voice I brought to the microphone. There's a quiet kind of peace that comes after the storm, the kind that doesn't announce itself, doesn't ask for applause. It just settles into your bones one morning, and you realize you're not angry anymore. You're just free. These days, I still run Bonnie Tech, but with a different energy. I delegate more. I take breaks. I build for the future, not just to prove a point. My story, our story, became something of a legend in business circles. Whispers at networking events, startup panels, investment retreats, that's Ava Bonnie. The one they tried to erase. They never finish the sentence. They don't need to. The company is stronger than ever, but more importantly, I'm stronger. Not because I won the war, but because I learned how to put down the sword. I no longer obsess over what Rosalind did, or how Dad failed me. I don't need revenge. I have results. I have impact. I have peace. And somewhere on my shelf, still wrapped in silver paper and a satin ribbon, sits the birthday gift I never gave my father, a photo album of our company's journey, from strip mall to skyline. I haven't opened it. Maybe I never will. It's not just a gift anymore. It's a monument to everything I built while no one was watching. Sometimes I look at it and feel the ache of what could have been. A family business that stayed whole. A legacy we could have shared. But then I remember that night. The look in Rosalind's eyes, the way Dad nodded along like betrayal was just business. And I remind myself, some lessons don't come with reconciliation. Some stories end with growth, not reunion. And that's okay, because the best revenge is no longer needing any at all. What this journey taught me is simple, but hard-earned. Real strength isn't loud. It's built in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when no one believes in you but you. And loyalty? It should never come at the cost of your dignity, not even for family. I spent too long waiting for their validation, not realizing that I was already enough. My advice to you? Know your value. Guard what you build. And never let someone else write you out of your own story. Now tell me, have you ever been overlooked? Silenced? Made to feel small in a space you helped create? I'd love to hear how you took your power back, and thank you, truly, for being here to hear mine.